Welcome back to the Rashi Nosh. I'm Pastor Matt.
And I'm Kara.
This week we have a new Torah portion called Vaera. And we are in our JPS Rashi Torah discussion commentary. We're on page 44 if you would like to follow along. In this section called Family Matters, we're going to talk a little bit about spouses, and I think that is appropriate since we are married. So, something for you to think about in your marriage, or if you're not married yet, what you may be looking for in a potential spouse. I think this is something that's very important. Family life in the Jewish community is very important, and having peace in the home is really paramount in Jewish lifestyle living. So, this is something that always is a good topic for us to discuss. And it's something, as I counsel every week in our yeshiva, I have office hours where I give counsel to people all over the world. A lot of times, the advice that I'm giving is on marriage, on family. So, this is something that we think is very important. So, we are looking at this section called Family Matters, and it says this. Choosing a spouse may be the most important decision a person makes. While describing the genealogy of Moses' brother Aaron, a verse from Parashat Vaera offers some advice on this subject. And it says, Aaron took to wife Elisheva, daughter of Amminadab and sister of Nachshon, and she bore him Nadav and Avihu, Eleazar and Itamar. This is in Exodus 6:23. Given that the verse names Elisheva's father Amminadab, there is no need to also mention her brother's name, since the Torah states elsewhere in Numbers 7:12 that Nachshon was the son of Amminadab and thus the brother of Elisheva. So it's already stated, it's obvious. But Rashi explains the seeming redundancy. Sister of Nachshon. Here's what Rashi says. From here we learn that one who contemplates marrying a woman should first investigate her brothers. It's an interesting statement there. This is Rashi's comment on Exodus 6:23. Until recent generations, it was customary for Jews to arrange the marriages of their children, with their consent, of course. In contemporary society, parents no longer are involved with the children's choice of a spouse usually. Within the Orthodox Jewish community, and especially in its more traditional segments, however, parents and matchmakers, we still have matchmakers today, they retain an important role. It is common to make inquiries into a prospective spouse's family background before or during the dating process. This is something that we believe, and we have always said to people in our congregation and to our own children that when you marry someone, you actually also are marrying the family, and that needs to be something that we think about. We need to sometimes work through the idea of, is it worth what you will go through with the other family to marry this particular person? And sometimes it's a wonderful match. We have often joked, we have one child, our oldest daughter, Callie, who is already married, and we used to joke that when we were meeting her now husband, Dylan, that if we could have arranged that marriage, we would have. We thought it was a very good match, and he comes from a great family, and he's a great young man. So we used to joke that maybe we could have forced them to get married. Maybe we could have arranged that, but we didn't need to. It was very natural, very organic, and we love our son-in-law. Now, it is interesting to me that there are sometimes people will make the decision, this person, I want to marry them. I don't really necessarily agree with their family or get along with their family, but I love them enough that I'm willing to work through whatever is going on with the family. There are other times that I will advise someone in pre-marriage counseling, if it's going to be such a struggle, why do you want to bring that struggle, that stress, that strife into a new marriage? So it's really something that we need to work out. Now, I think, I could be wrong, but I think you get along with my brothers, and you have a brother and a sister, and I think I get along with them. So I think that was a good match.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to tip our matchmaker. And well, we did not have a matchmaker. But let's look at a few of these discussion questions. How did you meet your spouse? Or if you've not been married, how did your parents meet? What input, if any, did your parents have in the courtship? Now, I'll ask you this question, if you want to answer about us, about how we met, or your parents, either one. Do you have any thoughts on either of those about how either we met or how your parents
Well, we
met?
met at college,
We did.
and similarly, my parents actually met in high school.
Okay, there
So
you go.
both in school. So yeah.
My parents met in they I think they went to school together, but I think mainly their time together was at church. They both went to the same church. They were in the same youth group, and it was interesting. They started dating, and they were pretty young when they started dating, but they have always believed in something that we have said to our children is every date is a possible mate. You know, you want to make sure that you are dating someone that you think is marriage material,
Mhm.
you know, at least in our country, in the United States, and maybe it's like this in your country, I'm not sure. There have been people that will say, "Oh, I would date this person, but I don't know if I'd marry them." And then we look at that as, well,
Wasted time.
yeah, what is the point? It's kind of a waste. Why would you get close to someone that you would not consider marrying? So I think for both of our parents, like us, I think each got along with the other side of the family. I think it just happened to work out. We are very blessed in our family that we don't have any contention with in-laws or anything like that.
And our families didn't really have so much to say in the actual courtship, but I feel like if either of our parents had any um reservations in regards to our relationships, that they would have felt free to express those, and we would have taken those into consideration. I feel like, I don't know if you felt that
Yeah,
way, but my parents, after they, met you and got to know you, they were confident that we were, a good match. But if they had felt like, you weren't, then obviously that would have played into our courtship in a way, possibly, depending
I
on what
think
the situation was that they were concerned about.
I agree. I think the only thing that I can speak of to that is your dad making me promise to wait at least 6 months before I proposed to you,
Well,
because
right.
he saw that our relationship was getting rather serious rather quickly, and we were both marriage minded. We both were not wanting just to date someone. We wanted to work um, toward marriage, and so I think that has something to do with it. That's interesting. What relevant information can be learned by inquiring about a prospective spouse's family background? How do you account for the possibility that a person may differ in significant ways from his or her family?
I know we talk about this a lot in pre-marriage counseling, and it's the whole idea of each family has its own like unique culture. You know what I mean? Like the way they think about certain roles and duties and holidays and just how they function as a unit is its own unique culture. And then your spouse has its own family unique culture. And so bringing those together can always be interesting if there's anything that would clash. You know what I mean? That would be a serious issue. So I think sometimes when you look at a person's family of a potential spouse, you're looking for things like, um, do they have ideals? Does their family have ideals? And because clearly the family dynamic will affect your spouse, whether they are choosing to follow it in the future or to go against it. You know what I mean? But knowing what's there, knowing what the beliefs are, knowing their traditions, how they treat each other. I often heard, if looking for a man spouse, like you look to see how he treats his mother, and that might be reflective of how he might treat you as a spouse, the female in his life. And so I think there's a lot of things you can get out of really looking at the family of your possible mate, because there are some things, good and bad, that you can glean from that. And then just kind of go into the relationship, with your eyes open and not just blindsided by all of a sudden, like, wait, what do you mean? Your family doesn't, think you should have kids, or, I mean, just that's a big example, but you know what I mean? There's a lot of different things that could be a struggle. And it's not meaning that you won't have anything to do with the family, but it might have to be that you're going in aware, you know what I
Mm.
mean? And knowing that you're going to have to work through some things, and it might not be straightforward or something like that.
And this is why we require, if I'm going to perform a wedding for someone, we require that they go through at least 8 weeks of pre-marriage counseling. And we go through a book and a workbook together, and we talk about a lot of varied topics. And things like this come up. And I've mentioned before here, but I'll mention again that I have done premarriage counseling with couples that end up breaking their engagement, that perhaps something is brought up in the pre-marriage counseling. Oh, I didn't know that you didn't want children, and that's a deal breaker for me. Or I didn't know that you felt strongly about this, and there certain times there cannot be compromise that someone's not willing to give on a certain issue. And so what I always say is I would rather see a relationship end before you get married than to have a divorce. I would much rather see something like that. And so that I think is something important that needs to be brought up. And another thing that I would just mention is that anyone who gets married as a part of our ministry in the yeshiva, in Yeshivat Shuvu or Ahavat Ammi Ministries, anyone who gets married in our organization, they also must come to me for pre-marriage counseling. And we have found that knowing these things, like you say, with your eyes open on certain things, so that we don't have you're going to have enough big surprises or even little surprises
A lot
when
of adjustments.
yes, I mean you're starting to live with someone that you weren't before, and just even our little habits and idiosyncrasies and rituals, things that we do, you already have enough of adjustment going, from not living together to living together. Let's not have some blind spots to where something could be a big surprise. There are other things that I'll mention just quickly that can be compromises. And when you talk about, traditions, holidays, things like that, something that we did a lot when we were younger in our marriage, and something that our daughter and son-in-law are doing now, and that is a sort of alternating holidays. Which family do we spend this holiday with this year? And then next year, let's have an alternate. Let's do this or whatever, or even doubling up on stuff. Now they live 1,000 miles away, and so there's a little bit of juggling that has to be done. When we were first married, your parents lived about 35, 40 minutes away, and so on holidays we would often double up. We would go see my parents for a little bit. We'd go see your parents. We'd almost try to make it all fit and try to give each family a little bit of our time, and that is uh, easier to do before you have children,
Mm.
because then once you have a staff, and once you're not just a couple, and as a couple, you are your own family, but once children are involved, if the Lord blesses you with children, then you're really kind of your own unit, your own separate family, and you may have your own traditions that you do. So you're dealing with, the wife's family's tradition, the husband's family's tradition. Now we're creating our own tradition, and sometimes it can be a little difficult to keep it all straight.
Yeah.
But that's part of the fun of that time of life, because unfortunately, it's very short.
Yes.
As we have adult children now, we're on the other side of that, where we see, wow, now we have one that's married, and they're developing their own rhythm and their own tradition, and everything, and it's really exciting to see how a family dynamic um, operates, especially with people like us, where we have a very big family, very big extended family. So these are part of the adventures that we go through. And if you are, I'll just say it like this, if you are looking to be married, it is a good thing for you to do, like what was done with Elisheva and her brothers. It's good for you to get to know the family. And even if, God forbid, you don't get along with, or if you aren't very close to the other spouse's family, why don't you try some ways to make some bridges to come together? Because as we like to say, you don't just marry the person, you marry the family. You marry into that family, and peace in the home is very important in Jewish life. Getting along, having peace with one another, having fellowship with one another. So it might be something good for you to think about. When's the last time you did something with your in-laws? It might be time to do that. Or if you are looking for a potential spouse, don't forget to look into the family. Does this person come from a family, or like you mentioned, how does this person treat their mother or their father? How does this person relate to their siblings? And this might give you a clue as to how they may operate, especially under stress. So, anything else on this particular subject?
Nope.
Okay, well, this is exciting. I always like it when we talk about family and marriage and things like that. So, if you're in this situation, may the Lord be with you, and may you choose the right person. And if you're already in a marriage, may you get along with your extended family, and may the Lord give you a lot of just good fellowship together and lots of memories. Thank you once again for joining us for Parashat Vaera, and we will see you next time. We wish you and your family shalom.